The rain had started 20 minutes before the cake came out. I remember that because I had just turned 25. There were exactly 25 candles on top of a chocolate cake I couldn't afford. And my father was standing beside the microphone with one hand in his pocket like he was about to announce a raffle winner. The restaurant sat on the edge of the river. 3 private sections. White tablecloths. Dim yellow lights reflected in the windows. And 3 tables away sat the people who shared my face. I didn't know that yet. I only knew something was wrong. My mother's smile looked rehearsed. My father's glass stayed full. Neither of them had touched the food. Then my father tapped his fork against his glass. The room went quiet. And before the night ended, I would learn why my parents had spent 25 years hiding the truth. I would also learn why the people sitting 3 tables away couldn't stop staring at me. But that part comes later. Welcome to Family Revenge Stories New. This channel is about family, money, loyalty, and the people who finally stop apologizing for doing the right thing. Before we begin, drop where you're listening from in the comments, subscribe if stories like this mean something to you, and settle in. Because this one did not end where I thought it would. My father, Richard, believed appearances mattered more than explanations. He ironed his own shirts, drove the same dark blue sedan for 15 years, used rubber bands to keep old receipts together, complained about paying extra for branded cereal, yet somehow always managed to donate money anonymously when someone in town lost a house or got sick. People called him careful. My mother called him difficult. I called him Dad. At least then I did. He carried a silver pocket watch he inherited from his grandfather. Every evening at 6 he wounded exactly 3 turns. Never 4. Never 2. 3. When I asked why, he would smile. Because every account should balance. It sounded like old man wisdom. Years later I learned it wasn't. My mother, Carol, operated differently. She loved appearances. Loved being admired. Loved telling stories where she was always the generous one. If Richard gave money quietly, Carol made sure people knew she had offered advice. They'd been married almost 30 years. At least that was the story. And stories mattered in our house. More than facts sometimes. Growing up, there was one arrangement everyone accepted without question. I was their daughter. That was it. No paperwork. No discussions. No mysteries. Just an understanding nobody examined. The flaw was obvious. I simply never looked for it. When people joked that I didn't resemble either parent, my mother laughed first. When relatives mentioned family traits I didn't share, somebody changed the subject. Life moved on. Most secrets survive because nobody asks the second question. At 25, I wasn't exactly succeeding. I rented a 700-square-foot apartment above a dry cleaner. My graphic design business had lost 2 major clients. My savings account looked more like a phone number than a financial plan. I worked too much, slept too little, and seriously considered skipping my birthday dinner because gas money mattered more than cake. But my parents insisted. So I showed up. The betrayal arrived between the appetizers and dessert. My father stood beside the microphone, cleared his throat, looked everywhere except at me. Then he said it. We feel it's time to be honest. The room laughed politely. Nobody knew what was happening. Neither did I. My mother took the microphone. Her hand looked steady. We raised Emma as our own. The room went silent. Not confused. Silent. Like people sensed the floor moving beneath them. My father stared at the carpet. My mother continued. You were adopted. I waited. There had to be more. A joke. An explanation. Something. Instead she smiled. Your real family is here tonight. Then she pointed. 3 tables away. A man dropped his napkin. A woman started crying. A younger woman covered her mouth. And every face turned toward me. My chair suddenly felt too small. My skin felt borrowed. My father still wouldn't look at me. The room buzzed with whispers. Questions. Forks scraping plates. Nobody knew where to look. Including me. My mother kept talking, as if she were announcing a scholarship winner. As an adult, we think it's time you reconnect. Reconnect. The word landed harder than the revelation. Reconnect implied connection. There wasn't any. I had never met them. Never known they existed. Never known I was supposed to. The crying woman stood. My biological mother. Though I didn't know how to use those words yet. She looked terrified. Not excited. Not triumphant. Terrified. Which told me more than anything my parents had said. Then my father finally spoke. We did what we thought was best. That sentence would follow me for years. I stood up. The restaurant felt smaller than before. Nobody stopped me. Nobody explained. Nobody apologized. I walked outside into the rain and sat in my car for almost an hour. 3 knocks eventually hit my window. Not my father. Not my mother. The woman from 3 tables away. She stood soaked in rainwater, holding a photograph. I lowered the window. She handed it to me. Inside was a picture of a baby wrapped in a yellow blanket. Me. On the back was a date and a hospital name. She looked exhausted. Not from that night. From carrying something too long. I've waited 25 years to meet you. Then she walked away. I drove home. And for the first time in my life, I didn't know who my parents were. The next 6 months became a slow collision between truth and habit. My adoptive parents expected gratitude. That surprised me. They genuinely believed the dinner had been generous. An act of honesty. My mother especially. She told friends she had finally given me a gift. A gift. Like truth was a sweater she bought on sale. Meanwhile, I started meeting the people from the restaurant. My biological mother, Linda. My biological father, Michael. And my grandmother, Eleanor. Eleanor became the center of everything. She was 78. Owned 4 cardigans. Used the same ceramic mug every morning. And carried a notebook filled with names, birthdays, and reminders. The notebook appeared everywhere. Kitchen counters. Doctor offices. Church pews. Car seats. If she misplaced it, the entire day paused until it was found. That notebook would matter later. At first I visited once a week. Then twice. Then almost every day. Not because anyone demanded it. Because Eleanor treated me like someone she had been expecting. Not missing. Expecting. There was a difference. One evening she explained what happened. My biological parents had been teenagers. Scared. Poor. Pressured. The adoption wasn't forced. But it wasn't entirely free either. And afterward, letters had been exchanged. Pictures. Updates. Until one day they stopped. My adoptive parents had ended contact. Without telling anyone. Without telling me. Eleanor stirred tea while explaining this. Like she was discussing weather. Not history. The calmness hurt more. Because anger would have been easier. I learned my biological family had spent years searching. Not aggressively. Respectfully. Waiting for adulthood. Waiting for permission. Waiting for a door that never opened. And still they stayed. Every warm discovery carried a cost. But I stayed too. If you've ever carried someone else's silence longer than you should have, comment, I stayed below and subscribe. Because this story is only beginning. A year later, Eleanor's health started declining. Nothing dramatic. Just age collecting its debts. Appointments multiplied. Prescriptions expanded. Forms appeared. I drove. Organized paperwork. Built spreadsheets. Handled insurance calls. The glamorous side of family loyalty. My design business suffered. Contracts disappeared. Income shrank. I moved into a smaller apartment. 600 square feet this time. Eleanor noticed. She never mentioned money. Instead, she asked practical questions. Did you eat? Did your car get new tires? Are you sleeping enough? People who love you often sound boring. That is how you know it's real. Meanwhile, my adoptive mother built a different story. According to her, I had abandoned the family that raised me. Chosen strangers. Forgotten sacrifices. The story spread surprisingly well. Simple stories usually do. Several relatives stopped calling. One cousin blocked me online. I almost responded. Almost posted documents. Almost explained everything. Then I closed the laptop. Some battles become lies the moment you enter them. So I stayed quiet. Eleanor and I started restoring old family photographs. That became our project. Every Wednesday, boxes of fading pictures. Labels. Dates. Stories. The notebook sat beside us every time. Names connected to faces. Faces connected to memories. Structure disguised as nostalgia. One afternoon I found an envelope tucked inside the notebook. Unsealed. My name written on the front. I froze. Nobody was watching. The room was empty. The flap sat half open. One glance would have answered 100 questions. Instead I slid it back exactly where I found it, then returned to sorting photographs. 10 minutes later Eleanor entered. Looked at the notebook. Looked at me. Then nodded once. "You'll drive me Thursday." Not a question. Just certainty. Years later I understood. That envelope wasn't protecting a secret. It was measuring character. And I passed a test I never knew existed. Thursday turned out to be a meeting with an attorney. No explanations. No drama. Just signatures. Questions. Updates. Business. On the drive home Eleanor stared out the window. Then tapped her notebook. Every account should balance. The same sentence my adoptive father always used. Except somehow it sounded different coming from her. Like a fact. Not a philosophy. One autumn evening we finished cataloging the last box of photographs. Eleanor made grilled cheese sandwiches. Used the same ceramic mug. Opened the notebook one final time. Then closed it. I think we got everything where it belongs. Past tense. A closing sentence. I joked that she'd probably find 3 more boxes next week. She laughed. Let me have the joke. We watched television for an hour. Nothing important. Nothing memorable. Exactly the kind of evening people miss later. When I left, she waved from the porch. The notebook rested under her arm. I didn't know it was goodbye. The next morning I knew before opening the bedroom door. The house felt different. Still. Complete. Like a sentence with a period. Her ceramic mug sat washed beside the sink. The notebook rested neatly on the table. Her cardigan hung over a chair. Everything finished. Nothing interrupted. I called the ambulance anyway. Then family. Then everyone else. My adoptive mother's first question arrived before condolences. Was there a will? And suddenly 25 years made sense. My adoptive mother's first question arrived before condolences. Was there a will? The silence after that felt longer than it actually was. Not because the question shocked anyone. Because it arrived too quickly. Like luggage packed before a trip. I answered honestly. I don't know. She hung up shortly afterward. No mention of Eleanor. No memory. No story. Just business. I looked at the ceramic mug beside the sink. Then at the notebook on the table. And stayed where I was. The funeral happened 5 days later. Rain threatened but never arrived. The church filled quickly. Neighbors. Friends. Former coworkers. People Eleanor had helped without keeping score. The receiving line stretched almost to the parking lot. My adoptive mother arrived dressed perfectly. Dark clothes. Careful makeup. Tissues already prepared. By the time she reached the front, tears appeared exactly on schedule. People embraced her. Listened to her. Believed her. She spoke softly enough to seem humble and loudly enough to be heard. It's tragic how divided the family became. A few minutes later, we tried so hard. Then, sometimes children forget who raised them. The story remained consistent. That was its strength. Not accuracy. Consistency. I said nothing. The dead do not benefit from public arguments. So I watched. And noticed something. My adoptive father stood beside her. Quiet. Uncomfortable. Whenever she repeated the story, he looked away. Just slightly. A tiny crack. But a crack all the same. Near the end of the service, a woman in a navy suit approached me. The attorney. The same one from the Thursday appointment. She handed me a business card. No explanation. Just a small nod. Not sympathy. Recognition. Like someone confirming a reservation. Then she walked away. 2 days later everyone gathered in a conference room. The room itself looked forgettable. Gray walls. Cheap coffee. Artificial plants. People always imagine life-changing moments happening in dramatic places. Most happen under fluorescent lighting. My adoptive mother arrived confident. Too confident. She sat near the head of the table. Crossed one leg over the other. Smiled at relatives. She behaved like someone attending a formality. Not a discovery. A formality. Before the attorney entered, I heard my mother whisper to a cousin, "At least Eleanor made things right before the end." The cousin nodded. My mother smiled. She already believed the story was finished. The attorney entered carrying a folder. Everyone settled. Paper rustled. Coffee cups touched the table. The attorney opened the file. Then began. She reviewed routine details first. Property, accounts, personal belongings. Nobody paid much attention. Then she mentioned a number. The room changed. Several people straightened in their chairs. Someone stopped taking notes. Someone else lowered a coffee cup halfway to the table. Because Eleanor had not been nearly as poor as everyone assumed. Over decades she had accumulated investments, land, royalties from a small manufacturing business her late husband once owned. Quiet assets, invisible assets. The total value exceeded $7 million. Nobody had known. Not even me. My adoptive mother's eyes widened, then narrowed. The calculation began immediately. You could see it happening. The attorney continued, and then arrived at the section that mattered. Eleanor maintained detailed financial records concerning all family assistance provided during her lifetime. The notebook. Of course. The notebook. Every birthday. Every loan. Every check. Every favor. Every account. Balanced. Just as she always said. The attorney opened another document. Eleanor specifically instructed that all substantial financial assistance previously provided should be treated as advances against future inheritance. The room became very quiet. My mother stopped smiling. The attorney began reading figures. Tuition payments, down payments, business loans, vacation properties, credit card settlements, decades of assistance, recorded, documented, signed, dated. My adoptive mother interrupted. Those were gifts. The attorney looked down at the paperwork, then calmly replied. Eleanor disagreed. More pages turned. More numbers appeared. And every number reduced what my mother expected to receive, until eventually there was almost nothing left. Not because Eleanor punished her. Because Eleanor counted. The way she counted everything. The attorney then unfolded a final page. This statement was written personally by Eleanor 6 months before her death. She began reading. The room listened. In Eleanor's own words, "Doing what you think is best does not erase what you actually did." The sentence landed like a dropped glass. Because those exact words answered something my adoptive father had said years earlier. We did what we thought was best. Now Eleanor had answered him. Directly. From beyond the conference room. From beyond the funeral. From beyond the years. The attorney continued. Eleanor explained that truth withheld becomes debt. That relationships require honesty. That love without truth eventually turns into ownership. Then she ended with a simple instruction. The remainder of her estate would be divided between family members, according to the updated accounting records. And a significant portion would fund a new community project. One she had discussed with me for years. My mother finally exploded. Not loudly at first. Worse. Sharply. Like glass cracking. This is ridiculous. Nobody responded. She continued. We sacrificed everything. Silence. Then louder. That money belongs to us. Still silence. And then the most revealing sentence of her life arrived. Not planned. Not polished. Not rehearsed. If we'd known she was worth this much, we would have handled things differently. Nobody moved. Nobody needed an explanation. The sentence explained itself. My father closed his eyes. The cousins stared at the table. The attorney said nothing. The room had finally met the truth. My mother looked around expecting support. Instead she found witnesses. There is a difference. I stood. Not dramatically. Just stood. Everyone looked toward me. I had imagined this moment before. Imagined speeches. Arguments. Evidence. Vindication. None of it mattered now. So I said the only true thing that seemed necessary. Eleanor never asked anyone to be perfect. I paused. She only asked people to be honest. Then I picked up my bag and looked at my father. Not my mother. My father. The man who had spent years looking away. He still wound that pocket watch 3 times every evening. His head lifted. The room disappeared for a second. Just him and me. Even at the end she remembered that. His eyes filled. Not dramatically. Just enough. Then I walked out. No speech. No victory lap. No final argument. Just a door closing behind me. The consequences arrived slowly. Like weather. Nobody contested the will. The records were too detailed. The documentation too complete. Facts make poor targets. Several relatives stopped calling my mother. Others maintained polite distance. The public version of her story didn't survive the conference room. Because stories require believers. And believers require doubt. There wasn't much doubt left. A month later one cousin called. The same cousin who had blocked me online. She apologized. Not elegantly. Honestly. That was enough. She admitted she had believed what she was told because it was easier. I understood. Most people do. I accepted the apology because carrying it further served no purpose. My adoptive father called once. Months later. We talked about weather. Traffic. Nothing important. Then just before hanging up he said, I should have told you sooner. I agreed. Neither of us added anything else. Sometimes that's what accountability sounds like. The project Eleanor created became real the following year. The photograph restoration room she dreamed about expanded into a community archive and assistance center. A place where families could preserve photographs, records, letters, and local history free of charge. Alongside it, we established the Eleanor Grant Fund. Not large enough to change the world. Large enough to help. Every year it pays document fees, record recovery costs, and genealogy research expenses for adults searching for lost family connections. The exact thing she understood better than anyone. The notebook sits inside a glass display case near the entrance. Visitors see it every day. The ceramic mug rests on a shelf beside old photographs. Still chipped. Still ordinary. The silver pocket watch eventually came to me. My father mailed it without explanation. No note. No letter. Just the watch. Every evening I wind it 3 times. Not because of tradition. Because every account should balance. 25 years ago, I walked into a restaurant believing I knew who I was. I walked out carrying questions nobody should receive between dinner and dessert. The answers took years. The cost took years. The healing took years. If I could trade every dollar, every document, every legal victory, every moment of being proven right for one more ordinary Wednesday sorting photographs with Eleanor, I would. Without hesitation. The money helped people. The truth helped people. But neither replaced her. The lesson wasn't that secrets always get exposed. Sometimes they don't. The lesson was simpler. Truth does not stop existing because someone benefits from hiding it. Call the person who once showed up for you while you still can. If this story meant something to you, share it with someone who needs to hear it, subscribe to Family Revenge Stories New, and I'll see you in the next one.